Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just Ask Jody Live. Today, we are talking about AI, artificial intelligence, the term that is on everyone's lips this year. It's funny, I was just talking to my guest before we went live that we're wondering, when is this going to be so normalized that I will be looking back at this recording thinking like, what was a big deal? We've all mastered AI. But I think it's still a big question about how to integrate AI into our daily workflow. And we're going to be talking about sort of a range of things that we can do, but specifically around business development, because, that's what this show is all about. So before I welcome my guest, though, I just want to remind you guys that I have launched a new program this fall. I launched it in September. It's called the Build, Win, Scale Accelerator. I launched a pilot program, a 16-week program with 5 pilot member agencies. We are building a new business operating system for each one of these agencies. It's a reliable, repeatable approach for new business success. The pilot sold out, and so far I'm learning a lot. I think my clients are learning a lot, but I will be reopening enrollment in January, kind of the perfect time to start the new year right. If you are interested in joining the program in January, please just go ahead and scan this QR code or simply email me, jody@thesuttercompany.com, or send me a direct message here on LinkedIn, and I would love to tell you more about it and potentially welcome you to the program for a successful 2026. All right, let me go ahead and introduce my guest, Matt Cyr, who is the founder of Loop AI. He is a veteran digital agency professional who realized that this AI thing had some legs, and there was really so much potential to help AI transform agencies. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about a range of stuff as much as we can in our half an hour together. Let me go ahead and welcome Matt to the stage and say, hey,
Jody.
how are you?
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you too. And by the way, for folks who are listening to us live, please do contribute questions if you've got a question for Matt about how to use AI for your agency. But I've already got a ton of questions, so I'm going to just jump right in.
Let's do it.
I guess a little bit, maybe without going too in depth, because I really want to get to some of the meat of the questions, but tell us a little bit about how you came to found Loop AI and why, what kind of potential and what opportunity you saw.
Yeah, great question. And actually, we're here on an auspicious day, Jody, because I just earlier today got notice from the U.S. Patent and Trade Office that my Loop trademark has been officially accepted, and I am in the public domain. 16 months later. So for anybody who's starting the process, it will take you 16 months to get your registered trademark. But it is, to me, just such a great symbol of why I got into all of this, right? I started, as I said, last springtime, really with the idea that I certainly knew a lot about agencies. I knew a lot about client side, having worked for many, many years at hospitals and universities before transitioning into agency. But like a lot of folks, I caught the AI bug about 3 or 4 years ago and came to understand the power that it could have, not just on agency operations and making things more efficient, more effective, et cetera, but also certainly in helping agency clients be more successful. So really wanted to found Loop as a way to help agencies and client side folks adopt AI in sort of powerful, strategic, and yet practical ways. And I've had a blast doing it. Honestly, I've never had more fun professionally than I'm having right now.
Well, I remember when you first started out and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, but
Yep.
you were at Mirren in May. And I think I felt like that was a little bit like your coming out party, because I think that now, I don't know, I feel like your business has just totally blossomed since then. You're working on building a platform. Maybe tell us a little bit about what that platform is going to do, because theoretically agencies can license or buy this platform for you, and it's going to help, like I said in the introduction, integrate AI into a lot of different workflows, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right about Mirren. It really was a sort of a watershed for Loop. And for me personally, it became really clear to me. So I did a talk at Mirren Live about the changing nature of agency client relationships in the age of AI.
Mm.
And the thing that really struck me was that after my talk was over, I had 7 or 8 people come up to me and ask if if I could help them with AI transformation.
Mm.
It was sort of this light bulb moment for me to understand that for many agencies, AI is existential, right? There is the
Yes.
potential that if it's not adopted and adopted effectively, that your business could be at risk. And so I could sort of sense that anxiety as I was talking to folks. And this was people from really all different size of agencies, from 20 people to 200 or 300 and on up. And so it really became clear to me that the near term pain, right? I'm an aspirin, not vitamins guy. The near term pain was in the area of helping agencies adopt AI. And what we've been planning and discussing in the last several months is this AI-driven platform.
Mm.
The goal is multi-part, but at its core, it's a way of helping use AI to automate as much as 80% of the work that we do at Loop, and take some of the things that we do as rote behavior in agencies, like discovery calls and the creation of decks and things like that. Some of these things that we have done for decades that maybe don't need to be done as much by humans as they have been. And so there's an automation of some of this, some of the work that we do. And the goal is, I keep using the analogy for the football fans out there, that we're hoping to help our clients start on the 50-yard line, and to help our Loop consultants start on the 50-yard line, so that we're beginning our engagements at a much more mature place, and really moving quickly to valuable, impactful engagement.
Yeah. Now, being a business development person, I myself get a little nervous when you say things like you can automate discovery calls. Although, having said that, I don't use AI to conduct my own discovery calls, but I sure use it for support. But like specifically around things like discovery calls,
Yeah.
how are you recommending AI be used?
So it's, for me, it's always a really fine line between the human and the AI. And that's why I named my company Loop. I have thought since the beginning that, AI can benefit humanity, but only if humans are in the loop. And so,
Oh,
my
nice.
point of view and perspective is not to take the humans out of that loop, because it is, I think, as we all know, so important as a way of building trust, building relationships, connecting with your clients in really powerful ways. And so it's not about really automating necessarily the calls themselves as much as the process of ingesting the information, right? You think about when you start off a new client relationship and they sort of give you a file's worth of data. And part of what we're building with our platform is what I call an ingestion engine that really allows for the data from agencies to be dynamically ingested, aggregated, and normalized, so that it can really help, again, get us started at the 50-yard line. So, for example, a Loop consultant could ingest materials from a new client. The AI could help bring that information in, make sense of it, and provide an early point of view to the consultant to say, this is what we think is going on in the business. Of course, you as a consultant need to go out and clarify and
Validate.
meet with
Yeah.
the client and validate. But it's a really nice way to get started a little farther down the path. And so far, we've had good luck with it.
Yeah. In general, because I know that you're talking to a ton of agencies who are showing interest in this. In general, what are agencies asking for? Or
Yeah.
do they
So
know enough about, are they asking intelligent questions? Are they still figuring out what to ask for from you, that is, rather than from their
yeah,
LLM?
it's both. So so I was at a marketing AI conference in Cleveland last week, and
Yeah.
it was fascinating because there was, to me, a pretty obvious divide starting to take shape. I was there last year, and what I noticed this year was that we had on one end folks who are using AI every day in their businesses and their personal lives, and sort of understand enough to know really how to utilize it effectively. And then on the other end, you had folks who were just starting to dip their toes and try to understand what was possible. And I think agencies are very much in that same place, which is there are some who are well advanced and doing an amazing job. And, we saw examples of that at Mirren Live. But then there are other folks who are like, we honestly don't really know how to start. And we
Yes.
don't want to do this at the expense of our humans. I hear this all the time, is that our goal is not to automate out our people. The goal is to help give our people the opportunity and the ability to do the things that they love to do and that
Mm.
are uniquely capable of doing, and letting
Yeah.
the AI do sort of what it's best at. And in my mind, again, back to the platform idea, is like the collection of data, the processing of data is not necessarily a human first endeavor. What is human
Mm-hmm.
first is how do you take what you learn from those data and really start to do something powerful and
Yeah.
on brand and on strategy with it.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Um, and yeah, I agree. I think that, I think we have been talking about how a lot of agencies are talking about how they want to move more towards, say, a consultative model, more like we want to be more like strategic consultants, or we are more like strategic consultants. And they don't always sell themselves the same way as skillfully as strategic consultants sell themselves. But I think that we are going to see the agencies that survive, thrive, are the ones that double down on that human talent, the
Yeah,
strategic thinking, the ability to take data and interpret it. And a lot of times I'm talking to a lot my agency clients and really urging them to sort of step into their role as the expert guide. We talk about how, when agencies are more order takers and how even clients don't appreciate that. But I think that AI will also encourage those that want to step into that role, and then maybe make it more frustrating for those who find that difficult.
yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the expectation is that agencies are needing to lead the way
Mm.
in taking their clients forward. I sort of jokingly say that clients are looking for agencies to be their AI Sherpa. And I think where agencies
Yeah.
are running into some challenge sometimes is saying, well, we don't really even know exactly how to do this well yet. We haven't mastered it yet, so we really can't be the ones who are doing that for our client and for our clients. And I think part of what we try to do at Loop is to say, like, we're going to help you get to the point where you can be that guide and that Sherpa
Mm.
for your clients, so they can come to you for the expertise and that consultative capability. One of the critical things to me, though, as part of all this is, yes, the AI can help with data analysis and moving process forward and things like that. But what it cannot do is help create differentiation for agencies. One of the things that you and I chatted about right before getting on this call was AI for the moment might be a differentiating factor at an agency. They might say, we've got incredible AI expertise and capability and products and all of those things. But 6, 12, 18 months from now, AI is going to be table stakes for
Yeah.
agencies, right? It's not going to be a differentiator. At Miran, one of the presenters said, nobody says that they differentiate on the internet or on electricity, right? So to me, that's where
Yeah.
this is going, which is AI becomes foundational and expected, and what you add on top of that is really what's going to make the difference.
Yeah.
I've been talking to an agency that's been around for 75 years, and one of the things that has become clear in our conversation is we want to adopt AI, we want to be technology forward, we want to be supporting our clients, but we don't want to lose what makes us uniquely us, right? What
Mm.
is it about that 75 years of history that means something to people? And so
Mm.
part of what we're doing is helping aggregate the data from that history
Mm.
and then
Yeah.
turning it into a really powerful tool for communication that is on brand, on voice, and on history, that really helps agencies stand out.
Interesting. Yeah, one of the things I try to do with my clients when we're working on core positioning and understanding what distinguishes them from others is, and I call it that, the points of distinction. I try to stay away from the word differentiation because it's become sort of loaded, and I think you can like differentiate yourself out of existence. But this idea of the things that come together to form a distinctive profile. So, you and I, both human beings, have the same stuff in our strands of DNA, and yet we are also quite different from each other. So I think that's how I think agencies, I've been saying that for years now, that's how they need to think about distinguishing themselves. And I suppose one of the things that I've been relying on up until now is my ability to sit down with an agency and sort of hash through the
Mhm.
stuff that comes up in conversation or that I review in documents. But I think what you're saying is that for an exercise like that, they're already sitting on this bank of information. And
Yeah.
so how do we leverage that? I mean, I guess this is going on my to-do list right after this, is like points of distinction um, AI tool, is how do we say, great, now let's take all that information and let's put it through that filter of the things that would distinguish one agency from another, and what do we have? So you can do something that takes minutes rather than hours and a lot of emotional angst. At least that's what I find in my clients. What do you,
Yeah, completely agree. And I think,
yeah.
I think sometimes, again, I've worked in an agency for, almost 8 years. And
Hmm.
I think we all experience that agencies tend to, like a lot of, like a lot of different professions, but tend to reinvent the wheel on things that you
Yeah.
do all the time. Right. And,
Yeah.
and if you're doing a creative brief, why is it going to be different today than it was yesterday, and different than it was 10 years ago? Right. If you have a certain way of pricing a service, or a product, that doesn't need to change every time, and it doesn't always need to be
Yeah.
up for debate. And so I think what AI allows us to do is to settle on those things that are agreed upon and that we
Hmm.
all feel good about. And then,
Yeah.
to your point, it really frees up the human beings, the consultants, to come back and say, we've already got that, right? That's table stakes. We already understand
Yeah.
how we're going to approach this from a process perspective. Now let's bring real human value to the conversation and really dig into your differentiators and your distinctions, and helping you be more successful as a client.
Yeah, it's interesting, the reinvention. I think that the reinvention a lot of times stems from the source is uncertainty. We're
Mm.
not really sure if what we're saying is that differentiated or is that unique. And so let's, like, before we send that credentials deck to a prospect, by the way, I think you should never actually send your credentials deck to a prospect, but that's for another conversation. But before we like send some material, let's like rework it. Let's figure this out again. And there's a lot of churn, and yet the needle isn't moved that much. But if you can be more definite about where your value lies, and if AI can help, again, take some of the emotion out of that feeling of like, oh, I've got to scan through my entire professional career to figure out what makes me different, then I think that's going to be really useful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I don't think I think AI, as you said at the beginning, is just sort of everywhere. It's ubiquitous, and
Yeah.
it's the constant topic of conversation. But one of the things that I don't think it's enough visibility and attention with regard to AI is its ability to help you think more strategically
Mm.
and to bring together information that allows you to really find your distinction in the world. And I think in some ways we think of distinction finding as a uniquely human thing. But one of the great things about AI is that it allows you to bring together data from lots of sources,
Yeah.
and it helps you sort of look through all of that, right? Needles and haystacks, look through all of that and say, everybody else is positioning themselves this way. There's something unique about you that you're not yet touching on that we really need to pull forward. And so,
Yeah.
as a thought partner and as a strategic partner, I increasingly use AI every day to help me think about competition and market
Mhm.
opportunity and things like that.
Yeah. I up until recently, up until AI, the age of AI, I would dissuade clients when they would come to me and say, we want to do a competitive analysis. And I would dissuade them for two big reasons. One, for a small agency, it's really hard to define such a core group of competitors. Your competitors change every day. The moment you've decided these are our six competitors, then a week later you're pitching against another agency you didn't even know about. So that's a moving target. But also there's this sense of yes, or this bottomless pit of information, and also getting caught on like, oh, well, they're doing that, we should do that. But that I think is could be, again, I've not actually done this myself, because I also think as far as competitive analysis, it's much better to look inside yourself and figure out what you do that's different than
Yeah.
to have a competitor inform that. However, the way that AI can then take a look at that landscape and through certain filters and criteria say, yeah, here's the competition you need to worry about, and here's the white space, I think is also potentially really powerful.
Yeah, and there's how many tens of thousands of agencies just in the U.S. alone, right? And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we can be a little precious with our imagining that we're very distinct and unique. And for me, I enjoy inviting that sort of volume of information into the conversation to say,
Yeah.
okay, let's sort of break through some of the clutter here and be honest with ourselves about the things that are
Mm.
compelling and maybe distinct about us. And again, I think AI, as we said before, is not going to be that thing for very long. And so I think
Yeah.
for agency folks out there, it's how to start really thinking about how do you benefit from AI uniquely and distinctly. And I think the only way to do that really is to understand what these technologies are capable of. And to be honest, you asked sort of like, what is the sort of the state of the art? I think part of what I don't see enough of is people really trying lots of different technologies. They sort of start with ChatGPT and stay there.
Guilty
Um,
as charged.
well, but it makes sense, right? I mean, I think we're used to
Yeah.
having a sort of a Google search that we're comfortable
Yeah.
with. But what you learn is that each one of these tools does something well
Yeah.
and better than others. And so the more that you can understand what does things very well, the better you can sort of pull that tool out of your toolbox at the right moment
Yeah.
um, to really help you be successful. So I would just encourage folks to experiment with different tools and see what they're capable of.
Which are there any tools that you think are particularly under leveraged, like ChatGPT versus something else that maybe should be
Yeah.
added to the? And I'm asking for a friend, not for me necessarily.
Right, totally. Um, yes, just let your friend know that I've been using Claude
Claude.
an awful lot
Yeah.
lately. Claude has been doing some really compelling things, even just within the last week, or actually within the last few
Mm.
days.
Hmm.
They released what they call skills, which are essentially ways of training the model to do repeating tasks in a consistent way and sort of short
Hmm.
circuiting the time it takes to do repetitive tasks. But one of the really exciting things that both Claude and Google in particular have been doing is late last year, Anthropic, which is the maker of Claude, released what they called the Model Context Protocol. You might have seen MCP out in the market, or the Google version of that is A2A, agent to agent. And the power of these technologies and capabilities is that they really act as communicators between different AI systems in a really seamless and powerful way. So, as an example,
Hmm.
I use HubSpot for my business's CRM, and Claude has an MCP connector with HubSpot, among many other
Oh,
technologies.
that's cool. Yeah.
And I went into Claude. I made the connection. It's very simple. I
Hmm.
gave Claude the permission to go into my HubSpot database and access the information. And I just started having a conversation with my CRM data. And
Wow.
I asked HubSpot via Claude to tell me who my most engaged prospects were within my CRM. And in maybe 2 minutes, it came back to me with a comprehensive list, not just of the individuals themselves, but it had on its own created a scoring system. And based on the engagement of each of the different folks in my database, scored each of those individuals and ranked them based on their engagement. So it created,
Wow.
without my asking, a scoring mechanism and gave me a prioritized list of folks that I should be reaching out to, but also really critically, again, without me asking, shared some ideas for marketing that I could be using to these specific audiences that I could be effective with.
That is fascinating. And just like a quick aside for anyone who is live today or watching this recording, another reason to put your data in a CRM tool. I think there's still too many agencies who do not have that. But again, topic for another LinkedIn Live. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, so that's really interesting. And have you started to validate that? Have you
I
contacted any of these folks? And is it true?
I have, and it is right. I mean,
Wow.
that's the great thing about it is that the change in this case, right? We all can go into HubSpot and HubSpot, of course, has its own AI tools, But
Yeah.
what I loved about the interaction was that I could really have a conversation with that data through Claude, and it could give me back something in a really consumable way. And if you've used these technologies, Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, you
Mhm.
know that
Yeah.
they start to learn over time about
Yeah.
who you are and how you operate in the world. And so you've got that added context, right? So Claude can say, okay, I know everything there is to know about your business. Now I'm going to understand more about your prospects and your clients from your CRM data. Now
Yeah.
let's put those two things together and have a conversation about how not only you should be thinking about marketing, but you should be thinking about marketing in a very specific way that's
Yeah.
relevant to Loop, and not relevant to just every other company out there.
Yeah. What about another thing that is another big new business process or step that I think a lot of agencies are thinking about using AI for, or are proposal writing?
Yep.
Are you seeing any outstanding uses or stuff to stay away from even?
Yeah. Yes to uses. I think folks are increasingly seeing that that's a great capability,
Yeah.
for AI. I mean, I think, we've all been in the position of having years, if not decades, of past proposals. And we all know that, AI loves data. And so the
Yeah.
more you can feed the AI, both successful and unsuccessful proposals, presentations,
Yeah.
briefs, all of that kind of stuff, the more you can feed into that, the better trained the AI will become. And I
Yeah.
think what it does, again, is it sort of takes that, what I call the sausage making. It sort of takes some of that sausage making out of the process, and it allows you to jump right to the like, how do we make this proposal stand out? We don't
Yeah.
have to worry about the mechanics of it. We don't have to worry about the structure. We have to validate the pricing and the timelines, but we don't have to do all of that to the depth that we might sometimes do it. Let's
Right.
go to the really good stuff, which is showing our prospects that we can bring real value to their business. And so I think those agencies that are adopting AI around proposals and other new business, activities and outputs are really benefiting.
Hmm.
And back to this idea that we discussed earlier, sort of training an agency brain on all things historical and performance
Hmm.
about your
Hmm.
agency. Again, you can ask that AI to start, to give you a starting point for a proposal that is 90% of the way
Yeah.
there. So it's
Yeah.
it's incredibly
Yeah.
powerful to get going.
It's, one of the things that I think was always a holy grail, again, until AI became something that's in common usage, that this idea of building a content repository, a content database,
Yeah.
and it took a lot of man hours, and then it was never really used. And I think, a great example of filling a need that has been a need for a long time, but was sort of too hard for humans to easily wrap their heads and hands around. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
there's
was,
there's
I
some,
was
yeah.
talking recently to an agency, COO, and
Mhm.
was, sharing with her this idea of the platform that we're developing, and a major component of it is that data ingestion and normalization. And she said, I just think that's brilliant. She said, because as a
Yeah.
business owner, I have such
Yeah.
a hard time doing doing valuable things with my data. It's all in different formats and
Yeah.
structures. And, if you can normalize it and, as I say, flatten it, you can get so much more value out of it because it's all in a much more consistent, structure.
Well, let me ask you this, because I've found this with my own business and my own limited data. Is I've spent the last year sort of transitioning into a new set of programs.
Mm.
It hasn't been a wholesale change, but one of the things I realized is that, for instance, the document that I uploaded to my Sutter company content specialist within ChatGPT, that my sales sheets, my
Mm.
program descriptions are actually not that valid. And so what I realized is that, as I was asking it to help me, one of the ways I use AI a lot is help me write a follow-up email to this person I just spent, a 30-minute sales call with. And it's going back to old data. So I realized, oh, wait a minute, like, yeah, this is not one and done. I need to continue to train this thing. I need to say, actually, I'm not emphasizing those programs anymore. I want you to not use that, but use this. And so I think that, for me, that was a bit of a warning sign, and maybe for other agencies too, is that, yes, you can give it all this data, but you also have to shape how it's looking at it,
Yeah.
and maybe continue to edit it and continue to sort of foster it.
Yeah,
Love to
no
hear your thoughts on
question.
that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, the
Yeah.
more that you can be adding relevant data as you go, right?
Yeah.
AI is the opposite of set it and forget it, right? It only becomes more powerful the more you train it, the more you give
Right.
it, the more feedback you give it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the major things, people always talk about the watershed moment when ChatGPT was released in November of
Yeah.
22. And to
I
me,
can't, I can't believe it was that long ago,
I
but
know, right? It's amazing. It's already been almost 3 years. But the amazing thing, the critical thing that happened when ChatGPT came out was that it changed the nature of our relationship with technology, right? And,
mm,
and we have forever, or for a very long time, been thinking of our relationship in very much a one-way street, right?
yeah.
We sit
Yeah.
down, we go into Google search, and we ask it something. It gives us 100 million links in 0.25 seconds, and then it's up to us to sort of go through and look at everything and decide what's best for us. But it's very much
hmm
being given something, and then the relationship is over. But what
Yeah.
ChatGPT has done is it's really opened our eyes to the idea that this is a conversation, that this is a two-way street, and that
Yeah.
we can go back and we can say, okay, this is helpful, but not as helpful as I need it to be. Think about it this way and give me a different answer, or help me
Yeah.
find somebody who can solve this specific problem for me. Right. And it's that relationship that we are developing with the AI that I think
Yeah.
is that real differentiation between where we were and where we are and where we're headed. Is that if people can think of it as a partner and not as somebody just to go buy you a cup of coffee, then I think that's where you really start to get the value.
Yeah. This always happens. We're past the bottom of the hour mark, and I feel like I still have a list of questions to ask you. So I don't want to take more of your time than we need, because I know you've got a busy life, you've got a business to build. Um, Tell us, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you sort of wished we had brought up, something essential that agencies need to know about? And then also anything that you're working on that the agency should get in touch with you about. By the way, while you're doing that, I'm going to put up your email
Yeah, there we
for
go.
anyone to connect with you who's watching this.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I would say is, I'm very much an AI optimist.
Yeah.
I'm also a realist, right? There's a lot about what's happening here that is potentially, impacting jobs and lives and all of that. And
hmm
so I think the more that people can engage, and the more they can try, and the more they can learn,
mm
um, I think the better off they will be. And I think agencies are
Yeah.
used to being in this position of having all the answers, right? We're going to be able to go back to our client and we're going to have, oh yeah, we've done this for 10 years and we can solve this for you because we've done it before.
hmm
And agencies are not in that place right now. There are a lot of folks who, as
hmm
we talked about before, just are not yet there with AI. And so I would say, in some ways, you have to have that humility to say, I don't understand this. It's not the same as Google. What can I learn today that will help me be a more effective consultant tomorrow to my clients? And so I would just encourage folks to jump in, learn, try, read. I have a weekly e-newsletter that I have on LinkedIn. you
Which is
know
excellent, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Every either Sunday night or Monday, depending on my schedule, I'll post it on LinkedIn, and it
Yeah,
looks back at the previous week, and they're usually like the top 8 to 10 stories, and I write a very brief summary about what that topic means to the world and within the
that's
context of
great.
AI.
Yeah,
And
it's really
so
useful.
there's a lot of this great information out there. Take advantage of it. Go to Macon next year. It's an
Yeah,
incredible
that's MAICON.
and the Marketing
Yeah,
AI conference. Yep,
yeah,
really incredible. So I would just say be curious, right? Be human, right? There's a lot of these great qualities that we have as humans that I think people can
hmm
lean in. There's definitely
yeah,
anxiety to be had, but don't let that win. Embrace
yeah.
the opportunity, and I think you'll
It's never
you'll
too late.
enjoy it and benefit from it.
Yeah. Um, Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been really great. I'm going to have you back on again, I have a feeling, because this conversation is going to continue.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is great. It's nice to have a chance just to chat with you in this kind of a
Yeah,
this kind of a
yeah.
context.
All right. Well, thank you so much.